What's up, you guys? This is Tyson, and I'm coming to you live a few days after the Palm Springs Grand Open. For that event, I happened to play 7th, so I made top 8, and I was playing my good old trusty Fabled Beasts deck. The same deck that I piloted for the launch event, but I made some niche changes in order to better combat the meta. Moving into this event, I was expecting a lot of white, whether it's aggro or control, as well as a lot of red, pterosaur in particular. So I built my deck to try to combat the things that those particular decks were trying to do. During this event, we went 8 rounds on the first day. I lost the first round, and I was X1 going into round 8, where I lost the last round as well, on camera, no less. Just happened to break both of those games, but it is okay because I did well enough to qualify for top 16. And then in the next day, we had additional rounds in top 16, so there was an undisputed #1 player, and I was kicked out in top 8. So starting off the deck, we are playing for Flying Turtle. Flying Turtle is a 2-cost Fabled Beast spirit with a very unique ability that when it is summoned, you can reveal the top card of your deck, and if it is a Fabled Beast, which most of my deck is, you can add it to your hand. This card came in very handy throughout the event. Unfortunately, you'll see my game on cam where this card fails finally, but I built the deck in order to take advantage of the Fabled Beast engine, but also in ensuring that Flying Turtle hits most of its targets. And for the most part, it was successful. Moving on, we have for Penton, the Distinguished Gentleman himself. This card, for its level 2 and 3 ability, it reduces the first magic card that you play each turn. This is both your opponent's turn and your turn as well. This really allowed me to be able to use some cards outside of color for their maximum benefit, and I very much appreciate it for that. And outside of that, its stats hit all the way up to 4K, which is outside of the realm of Burning Force. Everyone's like, oh, red is like yellow's bad matchup. Yes, and it is precisely because of Burning Force. So I built most of this deck with that in mind. Moving on, I have for Aravata. Aravata is a Fabled Beast target for Flying Turtle. Additionally, when it is destroyed at levels 1 and 2, I can select a 2-cost spirit, either one of these, and summon it. Obviously, I have to pay the cost to do so, but this card allows you to be both defensive against your opponent and offensive. And I very much appreciate it for that because it has allowed me to push for game in circumstances where normally I don't have necessarily enough attacks to go at my opponent. But because of its ability and the fact that my opponent has to block, he or she is at a low life total, then Ravitar allows me to get in that extra damage. Next up, we have the MVP himself, Hippocampo. I know a lot of people are talking about how good this card is, even though no one noticed it at first, but it really changes the momentum of the game. It can turn a dead ice shield in your burst zone into a live card again. It allows you to basically be very offensive when you want to be without worrying about the crackback as much. One is so important, particularly in an aggro meta. Most people don't realize it until they have to play against it, which means that they have to be a little bit more conservative with their attackers. Otherwise, Hippocampo just, not only does it deal them a damage and refund me a damage, it ramps me a core essentially. We're moving on to 4 Gem Beasts Carbuncle. Not Carbuncle, unfortunately. This card I play because it's a Fabled Beast, so it's a target for Flying Turtle, but additionally because of its stats. Again, we want to make sure that you're getting outside of the range of things like Burning Force, but also when you're playing the mirror, stats like 4K become particularly impactful because you don't have to worry about removal spells such as Angelic Pressure and Exhaust Nexus as long as you play correctly. Okay, moving on, we have 4 of my good buddy Gale Yale. Gale Yale, while he is a vanilla, he was the MVP for this event. I definitely had a game where Gale Yale just won the thing for me. It wasn't the fact that I had one, it was the fact that I had three of them. It was actually in a mirror match. Because of its high stat at one core, it is 4K, so it was very difficult for my opponent to remove without investing 2 cards into it. And in addition to that, it's a Fabled Beast target for Flying Turtle, so it adds to your advantage engine. So I thank Gale Yale for doing a lot for me during the event. But outside of that, Gale Yale performed phenomenally. Unfortunately, he may be getting replaced because of the introduction of Dual Eagle, but we'll see how that turns out with a little bit more play testing. Moving on, we have 2 Heavenblade Dragon Ryut. Now, I opted to play this in the main deck for a couple of reasons. Against both white aggro and white control, Ryut allows you to maintain your momentum on your turn without worrying about your opponent bouncing things back to your hand. Additionally, I expected to play against Star Dragons, and Ryut makes it so that their Nova does not get to heal them anything. In order for them to remove this, they have to make a 3 to 5 core investment depending on what they have on the field, and that definitely messes with the math that they need in order to push for game or even push for control of the board. I actually had a game where I had Ryut out and my other side deck card, and my opponent playing white literally couldn't do anything, so that was just that. We have 3 God Beast Behemoth. Now, God Beast Behemoth, yes, he is a Fabled Beast and he synergizes with Flying Turtle. People think that he's like the boss monster for Fabled Beasts, and he really isn't. He's the boss monster for 2-cost aggro. Now, I play him in this deck because of his high stat lines, and additionally, the ability to play him for almost free depending on what I've milled in the early game. You'll notice that I only play 8 2-costs. It is less than standard, but God Beast Behemoth can still put in a lot of work just with these targets because I have access to Aravata, and Aravata can resurrect any of these from the trash and make sure that God Beast Behemoth does some work with them. I play 3 Wonderland Alice. Now, initially, I was not keen on this card. You'll notice my first deck list where I placed top 32 at the Vegas launch event, I did not play her. And the reason was, at the time, I wasn't as concerned about red, but I grew to fear it. And now I play Alice as a deterrent to Pterosaur in particular, because their ability to make you confront is particularly annoying. But now when they confront, it's essentially you ramp a core, and that's the purpose that she serves. And additionally, if you have enough spirits out, she gets to eat something, and that's what makes her so impactful. Moving on, we play the other MVP of the deck for Phantasmal Paradise. You will notice I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 25 Fabled Beasts, which is 50% of the deck essentially, making Phantasmal Paradise that much more impactful in the game. I think that the draw power that's provided by Phantasmal Paradise, that's not relying on what your opponent does, makes this Nexus the best yellow Nexus for this deck anyway. Additionally, the ability to get value off of it through its BP gain makes it so that things that are normally weaker, like your Flying Turtle and your Avatar, can get out of the range of, again, Burning Force. Because a defensive Burning Force can change or swing a game in the favor of your opponent, and that is something you do not want. You want to maintain control of the game. A little bit of the reason why I built the deck this way, I wanted it to be a control deck, controlling aspects of life, defense, but also the options that my opponent had to play against it. Moving on, we have 2 Blessed Cathedral in the main. Blessed Cathedral is a great card, don't get me wrong, but it is not very good in this aggro meta. It requires a 6 core investment in order to get its minimum value and a 7 core to get its maximum. And I think that difference in this investment makes this card not as strong as something like Phantasmal Paradise. The ability to ramp cores is great, but you really want the draw power so that you increase the options that you have. One thing that I normally say is it doesn't matter how many cards in your hand, it's whether or not you can play them, and this ensures that you get more cards and you can play them. The issue is you want it to stick on the field, and it's very difficult to have that happen. So we very much defer to cards like Flying Turtle and Phantasmal Paradise to get immediate value, and we use Blessed Cathedral as a threat to our opponent. Essentially, if you let it stay on the field, I will outvalue you for the rest of the game. Moving on, we have our 4 Absolute Ice Shield. It is a staple for this deck because the deck is mid-range, and any mid-range or late game deck requires Ice Shield in order to maintain life, essentially. And also versatility within this deck with Ice Shield is amazing, especially because of Hippocampal and Alice. Being able to block with Alice, gain a core, use Ice Shield, shut down a battle phase is very impactful. And I very much have used these particular combinations in order to kind of staunch my opponent until I'm in a more controlling position of the field. Out of all the decks, I think that yellow is perhaps the most skill-based because of so many different combo plays that you can have within the deck. And I very much lean into that with my card choices. The next one is our staple Exhaust Nexus, which I play 4 of. Yes, Exhaust Nexus is a staple for yellow, and the reason why is because it is a board wipe. Yes, there are spirits that can lay outside of the 3K threshold that Exhaust Nexus requires, but in matchups like against purple or against the mirror, Exhaust Nexus has the ability to hit for much more than the simple 3K simply because of its burst effect. A lot of people overlook that, and I've used that in order to regain momentum in a game, and it's very effective. Next up, we have 3 Suppression. Suppression is a combo piece for both Alice and God Beast Behemoth. It is meant to ensure that your opponent can't aggro you too much. It essentially functions as a 5th, 6th, and 7th copy of Ice Shield, but it has the added benefit of, in tandem with Alice, of being able to either ramp your core, and in tandem with God Beast, be able to erase a spirit on your opponent's field, and that's very impactful. Additionally, and it gives you the opportunity to gain momentum, even in situations where you don't even have it in hand, because they have to be wary of it. And last but not least, I play 3 Pharaoh Slash. Pharaoh Slash was the new card introduced within the core set, the promo, and essentially reads that when you lose life, you can choose one of your opponent's spirits with 3,000 or fewer BP and destroy it, and you can pay its cost of 4 in order to select one of your opponent's nexuses that's 4 or fewer and destroy it. This card hits everything, but it doesn't hit depths. And it is very impactful, not only in the mirror match for yellow, but particularly against red, and that's the reason why I run it. Pharaoh Slash in tandem with an Exhaust Nexus can help you hit something that you normally wouldn't be able to hit, because normally red has such high BP values, but if your opponent doesn't have Rex or have a Nexus on board, it makes everything they play vulnerable to Pharaoh Slash and Exhaust Nexus. This is minus their other godly static things like Dino Man. But essentially the idea is to use cards like Exhaust Nexus in order to decrease the BP of your opponent's creature so that you can win in battle, or you can use battle tricks like this in order to 2-for-1 them. All right, that wraps up the main deck, and we'll get into what I decided to side. Outside of my 52 card main deck, my 10 card side deck includes 2 Soap Bubble Lakeside, particularly for the white control matchup and to ensure that they are not able to block or disrupt your battle turns. 2 Counter Sword. This was particularly for the purple matchup, but also Star Dragon. There was no Star Dragon that I played against in this event. I don't even know how many there were in the event in total, but Counter Sword was mainly to go after their Novas and their Andromedas, and we didn't even see it. So this card was kind of dead outside of the 1 purple match I played, and I didn't even draw it. Next up, to Dream Bomb. Dream Bomb is for Nexus control against decks that play a heavy Nexus count. You saw already play Furrow Slash in the main, but Dream Bomb gives you additional Nexus control with the added benefit that you can also erase a spirit. This helps particularly in the white matchup so that you don't have to deal with things like Venatech Elk, and you don't have to deal with things like Nomen Guard as well. And it gives you an additional turn of momentum that your opponent can't get back. Next up, we have 2 Netherworld Depths. Netherworld Depths is also for the white matchup. Yellow has a particularly easy time against white, but I noticed at the launch event when I was playing against white that white has the ability to stall far too long. So I have these additional options to make sure that they can't stall the game to where it's in their benefit. They're able to steal the game. I won't have to worry about game 2 or game 3, and this card in particular helps me to erase their board, but also it's very effective against red because with 3 cores, anything that your opponent tries to block with can essentially be removed. So all of your things that are not strong enough to win within battle, they can win through this effect. And lastly, 2 Angelic Pressure. Angelic Pressure is here particularly for all matchups. It helps against white aggro, and that's what I cited in for most times. It helps against purple because of the low BP counts that they have. And it also helps against white control, so you can make sure that you hit multiple things with Exhaust Nexus. So, we're at the end of our deck profile. I think a few parting words are important. Yellow in particular, although people didn't really consider it to be good enough to be played within the meta, I always saw the potential of this color because of its ability to be versatile. A lot of decks lack versatility. They have a particular game plan, you have to stick to it, and outside of that, you're not able to basically combat your opponent or match what your opponent is trying to do. Yellow is able to do that and then some. It requires a skilled pilot, I'm not going to lie. Yes, you can play it as a beginner, but you won't get the same benefits out of it as you would if you were more knowledgeable about the game. This color in particular is particularly strong for punishing your opponent for misplaying or not playing optimally, and I definitely used that logic going into this event. I lost my yellow mirror match simply because I couldn't draw any magic, and that's unfortunate, that will happen. But the other match I lost in purple, I was not able to draw any nexuses, and nexuses allow you to maintain momentum in situations where your opponent is at an advantage. But my opponent had out of depths, they had out their other 4-cost nexus, and that allowed them to gain more advantage than I did from Flying Turtle, and that essentially gave them momentum to win the game. When you're in situations like that, doesn't matter how skillfully you play, most times you will lose. I do like the competitive nature of this game so far, being best 2 out of 3, very much rewards more thoughtful plays, more methodical play styles as well. And I think moving into the future, yellow is slated to be an even better contender because of its ability to be able to splash additional colors in order to gain more value. A lot of colors can't say that. And while yellow does require some resourcefulness from other colors in order to get its added value, I think that we'll see that yellow is much more powerful outside of even the Fabled Beasts archetype in the near future. Also, shout out to our sponsor for today, The Gaming Space. Please look at The Gaming Space for all of your playmat needs. They do things like Battle Spirits, Digimon, One Piece, and even Dragon Ball Super. They did not design this mat, unfortunately. This mat is the top 16 mat, as some of you probably have already deduced. But outside of that, the cloth mats that they provide are very good, very great quality. I definitely recommend you check them out. Look out for more videos in the future. I hope you enjoy. Please be sure to like, comment below, and subscribe if you like the content. And I very much I'm looking forward to doing more deck profiles, talking more in depth about the color yellow, and being able to be a little bit more methodical with what we are considering to be high level Battle Spirits deck building. All right, bye-bye.